And there's another important update. Due to a favorable base and a faster than expected pickup in the Indian economy, Central Statistics Office has expected that this year, the FY22 or 2021-22, we will see a GDP growth of about 9.2% as compared to a contraction of 7.3% that we saw last year. Now, this, viewers, is the first advance estimate of the GDP growth ahead of budget. Let's understand from Aditi Nayar, Chief Economist at ratings agency ICRA, what this really means. Aditi, appreciate you joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. I want to first understand from you, how do you see this projection by the CSO for this year, 9.2% growth?
Thank you. Our own estimate for GDP growth in real terms for FY22 is 9%, now with a slight downside because of Omicron. But if we look at where our projection was based on the data that was available until Omicron became an unfolding threat, I think this is a very fair projection at 9.2% for this year as a whole. And of course, as the restrictions widen now going ahead, we will recalculate what kind of a downside there could be to these numbers going ahead. On the nominal GDP side, we had expected a 17.5% growth. So what has been projected at 17.6% is again very close to our own forecast for FY22.
And ICRA also believes that Omicron may significantly impact the fourth quarter GDP growth. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
So we are looking at about a 40 basis points impact on the Q4 GDP growth because of Omicron. This is based on our current understanding, which of course will change if there is a significant widening of restrictions going ahead. But because of Omicron, immediately we expect there to be an impact on demand for contact-intensive services. And that's why we shaved off about 40 basis points from our Q4 forecast. We now expect Q4 GDP growth to be below 5% for the Indian economy. And as I said, we will continue to see what the widening of restrictions is. The cases are going up very sharply. My sense is that it's going to be the level of hospitalizations in this wave, which is going to determine what kind of restrictions are warranted. And therefore, this is a completely evolving situation right now in terms of trying to gauge what the impact on economic activity could be. Perhaps in about 2 weeks, we'll have a better sense of what Q4 is going to look like.
But, with the way things are right now, the way cases are rising, do you think states should avoid imposing lockdown? Because many governments clearly are worried with the spike in numbers.
Well, I'm not saying that. I think we need to, this is the new variant. There's very little information that we have about it right now. And it's possibly better to really be in a little bit of a wait and watch mode to see what is warranted. Stringent lockdowns are possibly, not going to be the way forward. But what is the level of restrictions? I think every specific geography will have to take, every state will have to take a view on what is required and warranted in terms of balancing both the health impact as well as the impact on livelihoods.
And which sector specifically do you see getting impacted the most because of this Omicron threat that we are seeing right now?
See, we see the bigger impact on the contact-intensive part of the services sector and less so on manufacturing and construction, because I think now the protocols of how to reduce the disruption in those sectors is better sort of set. We saw that in the second wave that there was much less of a disruption to those two sectors as compared to what had been the case in the first wave. But the contact intensive services are definitely going to be hit, even though people, much larger number of people are vaccinated now than during the second wave, but the impact is going to be very quick and, much sharper than for any of the other sectors. Within the advanced estimates that we got today, in fact, interestingly, construction is projected to implicitly projected to contract in the second half of FY22. Whereas the growth of mining and quarrying is projected in, double-digit sort of a range. So these were two specific sectors that really stood out to us, which were very different from our own impact. We were looking at a low growth for construction. There is a very high base effect, and there has been disruption in Q3 because of the heavy rainfall in South India. So we were expecting a low growth, but a little surprised that there's been a contraction which has been forecast. And for mining and quarrying, we had a single-digit growth that we had penciled in. So a little surprised by the the higher double-digit growth, which has been implicitly assumed by the NSO in its forecast.
Should government then start thinking about some measures with budget around the corner?
As of now, some of the measures that the government had implemented still remain in place. Like, for example, the go-to has been free food grain, which has already been extended to the end of this year. So I think it's a little too early to go into sort of panic mode and start trying to pump money into the economy. I think right now it's just too early. We need to see what is the real impact in terms of the disruption caused by Omicron. And my sense is that the level of hospitalizations is really going to tell us the way forward. I mean, that is what is going to be the key thing to watch in terms of understanding what kind of restrictions are required, and therefore what kind of disruption or that turns out to be from this wave in Q4.
But given the current scenario, what is it that you are expecting from the budget this year from the finance minister?
Things could definitely change between now and budget day, and more spending could be on the cards between now and then. I don't doubt that. But the initial sense we have is that the impact of Omicron may be limited to this quarter itself in terms of the spike in the number of cases, which will then fade away, and the economic impact as well. So my belief is that we should prepare the budget for FY23 on a cleaner slate and assume that it's going to be a relatively normal year, so that the space which is available can be really prioritized towards capital expenditure. If there is another wave of COVID-19 which is severe enough to warrant a large pickup in social sector spending, for example, if free food has to be extended into FY23 as well, or if we need a larger allocation for NREGA than we would in a normal year, those expenditures can always be provided for in future supplementaries. And we've seen the government doing that last year as well as this year. So I do think that at this point in time, we need to get the most durable spending possible, in a sense that the spending should be prioritized that gives us the most durable growth going forward. And therefore, I do believe that the government should consider setting aside at least 6 lakh crore for capital spending, which is about 50,000 crore per month. That will give us a good growth over this year as well in terms of capital spending. And that should be more in line with trying to create a virtuous cycle in the economy, which spurs jobs and spurs a more durable pickup in consumption. And if required, if the situation warrants, then I'm sure that the government will come in with other measures like extending the free food program and providing a higher allocation for NREGA if the initial allocation is not adequate.
And last question before we let you go, there is a concern around inflation, now third wave. Do you think that's going to add some bit of pressure on Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman and her team when they sit to prepare the budget for next year?
So we are expecting a base effect-led pickup in CPI inflation in this quarter. And going ahead, because commodity prices remain fairly elevated, we do think that the core inflation is going to be quite sticky. Although the agricultural side, between the harvest and the reservoir levels, as well as the reduction in the import duties on a whole host of food items, we think that there is some amount of a more benign outlook as far as the food inflation is concerned. At best, in FY23, we're looking at the CPI inflation coming down from an average of 5.5% in FY22 to 4.5% to 5% in FY23. Some reduction, but really not very sharp. So as soon as a more durable growth emerges, we do expect the MPC and the RBI to embark on policy normalization. As of now, because the medium-term target for the Monetary Policy Committee is, wider and higher at 2 to 6% than it is for many other large global central banks. Therefore, they can afford to be growth supportive for a lot longer. But it's only a matter of time before policy normalization has to start and interest rates end up moving upward.
All right. Thank you very much, Aditi, for joining us here and explaining to our viewers about the new estimate that has come from the government side. With this, we will slip into another very, very short break on urban debate. There's lots lined up for you on the other side as well. Dr. N.K. Arora joins us live. Stay with us.